the second hour of Fixing the Nation. We're live, of course, on Nation FM, on NTV, on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, anywhere with a broadcast or internet signal. Let's get into our news fix for the hour. And interesting now, CS Kagwe warns against illegal coffee hawking. I know you're asking yourself, what is illegal coffee hawking? Agriculture CS Mutahi Kagwe has sounded the alarm over rising cases of illegal coffee hawking, warning that the practice is fueling crime within the coffee sector. Speaking in Nyeri on Wednesday, Kagwe revealed that traders have resorted to selling coffee in entertainment joints with proceeds reportedly spent on alcohol. He termed the trend illegal, saying both sellers and buyers risk arrest since hawkers lack proper trading licenses. Kagwe also noted that this illicit trade has led to suspiciously high coffee deliveries from farmers with small land holdings, raising concerns about stolen produce entering factories. Okay, so I was giggling up until the last line. So if there is indeed stolen coffee, people with fairly small farms, but suddenly their harvest is bountiful, then there is indeed cause for alarm. I do wonder, though, what the issue with selling your coffee at an entertainment joint, what's the illegality there, to be honest?
So I did a quick search. I asked, do you need obviously, coffee license? But I don't know whether this answers your question, but it says, according to Kenya law, to sell homegrown coffee, the law requires registration for all coffee growers and a license for commercial sale of coffee in any form, because selling coffee is considered a commercial activity and it requires you to be licensed by the relevant authority, likely county government or Kenya Coffee Directorate. So maybe it's the bypassing. I don't know if there's enough information to say that they bypassed all this, but it seems maybe that's where now the illegality is.
So they said, there was a word commercial somewhere.
Yes.
But before it said that the law considers selling coffee like a commercial venture. Does it say to sell coffee commercially you need a license? Because if I'm selling to my friends, that's not commercial. I grow coffee, I sell to my friends and family.
I think they'll actually say it's commercial.
Yeah.
I see your point, but I think they want it to be under the rules. It's a good question. It can be happening now. If my neighbor, if I'm growing it, is it known? But the requirements for selling homegrown coffee, is it different from what we're saying? There's overlaps.
Homegrown coffee. That's Sasa homegrown ndio nini? It's my home. Does it have to be my shamba? These are interesting words.
And pertinent. So you need registration, a license, again, the commercial bit, to apply for a commercial license, compliance, county and national requirements, food handlers certificates. Because if you are trading, I can see how, and then I can see how that we do tend to bypass these processes. Remember, it's two things. It's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
We do make things very compliance heavy, but also I don't want to invalidate how important compliance is.
But
people also talk about like the bureaucratic nature of just wanting to do business.
Yeah.
So I think this is now people curtailing that. But at what risk? And then finally, the steps to take are to register. So ensure you're registered with your county government and coffee directorate, apply for the license, check county requirements, and get your certificates. Again, this is a part of the Coffee Act in Kenya Law Reports. That's where the source is. So
I hadn't thought about that. You need a food handling certificate to handle
anything that's been consumed.
Yeah, makes sense.
It makes sense. So maybe that's why there's an alarm. It's like, how are you just waking up and right out there? We can't verify. There's no compliance.
Yeah. Okay, nimeelewa. I do wonder about the commercial aspect. It's fair. I understand why all those checks and balances exist. I do wonder what commercial coffee is. Selling coffee commercially is. Is all coffee commercial? Does there exist no world where I just grow coffee for myself and like I give to my family and my friends? Yeah, and then I grind the beans at home. That's not commercial.
If I'm to disguise myself as a compliance person, I'll say, that is not possible, Mariam. It's very rare that you'd be growing coffee and not selling.
Right.
And because we can't tell, then you need a certificate. I don't know for what, but all valid questions. When you're doing homegrown, if it's not for sale, or is there the risk that it will become commercial?
Right.
So that's that first news fix. The second one is President William Ruto has revealed details of a phone conversation with Ukrainian President Zelensky, focusing on issues of mutual interest between the two nations. Ruto said the discussion largely centered on the welfare of young Kenyans reportedly illegally recruited to take part in the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. The president emphasized Kenya's commitment to protecting its citizens abroad and ensuring that no Kenyan is exploited or drawn into foreign conflicts. Now, the two leaders also discussed strengthening bilateral relations, including cooperation in trade and agriculture. We're really glossing over what's happening to citizens in different parts of this world. It sounds like a by the way, or you don't lead with, we're worried about. You say trade relations, cooperation, this is what we need to do. And then also, please, Woye, just make sure that you're not mishandling these guys.
Well, ensuring that no Kenyan is exploited or drawn into foreign conflicts. Has this been an issue on both sides of this conflict? I know in Russia we've heard several cases. We've also seen guys come back home and say, this is what's happening over there. Has that been the same for Ukraine?
In what sense?
In the sense that there are Kenyans who are finding themselves in Ukraine. Under the guise of, I don't know, I'm going to be a driver, or even if I'm going into some sort of conflict, it's in a capacity as, I'm going to be the chef, I'm going to be a driver, I'm going to be an admin person, and then you find yourself on the front lines. I don't know if that's the same.
I don't know, and if it's happening in any capacity, I'd hope it's amplified a lot, but I haven't heard that. In fact, I think the last we heard, even as we continue to follow on this crisis, was just the fate of students. I think that's as far as I remember how we were affected, was students from African countries, largely including Kenya, being stranded, etc. But no, not that last bit. I don't know. There's a lot of unknowns with what happens to citizens. And I think we've talked about this. What are missions doing? Embassies, are they doing enough to inform, to make sure that they're protecting and ensuring safety in the same way that we see other embassies do for their citizens? And that really hurts, because you'll find people say in many countries, and again, I'm speaking anecdotally, people might have a different experience, and maybe they're saying, Janet, you cannot blanket condemn what everybody does, but you will hear this over and over again. You don't get the sense that there's a rush to make sure that protection and safety of Kenyan citizens is front of mind.
You're right.
Is top of mind. It almost starts with that dalliance of diplomacy. Again, not under invalidating how important it is, but I don't know. I feel like we live in times where diplomacy has to go hand in hand with an urgency to protect your citizens. Don't lead with trade relations, cooperation, signing the visitors book, sitting down to talk and have tea, and then. I think it's okay to be passionate about what's happening to your citizens if you love us.
That's agreed. Agreed.
If our
and they don't
matters.
play around about their people.
No, they don't.
The people you're sitting down with, they do not play around about their people. If it was Ukrainians in Kenya who we were not able to account for, best believe it would be diplomatic hell. It would not be, let's have coffee, let's talk about trade. It would be, watongo wako? Immediately.
Sanctions, travel advisories, right? And I think, Mariam, this is where now as a continent, and I think the citizens, Africans on the continent, we're showing up for each other. When you see the agitation even happening, whether it was last year in Kenya, whether it's this year in Tanzania, what the world is now seeing is, the citizens are holding space for each other and prioritizing each other's well-being, access to rights, access to justice, access to agency. And then leadership is just sort of, like I said, holding on to tools that no longer work. But then you look like a joke. And it's easy for people to dismiss you, because how are you? Even for Trump to say to Nakam Nigeria, because you guys are, for somebody to have the audacity to say that, it means wanakubebaje. But how are you also showcasing and showing how you're holding space for your citizens? So
you know what was this, and you're right, it's a failure of leadership.
It's a finger pointing. It is a failure of leadership.
Because the most worrying thing, Trump is Trump. He will say things, he will do things, unfortunately, that are that insane, right? So he said that. It's crazy still, but it's very on brand for President Trump. There's nothing crazy there. But the reaction of some Nigerian leaders to it, it was almost like, oh, thanks for offering us help with our terror problem. It was almost exactly that. I'm like, are you okay? So the failure isn't, and I saw Nigerians lose their minds. Just like, Are we reading the same thing? Are we hearing the same news? And I'll go through actually, what's it called? I was going through someone's Twitter page, and they were just like, this is what your president is saying about a foreign country, saying they're basically coming to invade you. Not your president. This is what your leaders are saying about a foreign country potentially coming to invade you. And they seem to just be okay. So you're right. Sisi tuko, like as citizens, very much on the same page, the leadership on a different page.
Very, somewhere along the way, and I know we're moving to other stories shortly, because you can see the sort of like the lapse in leadership, the decline in leadership over the years. And we can thread on this, I think, with a lot more intent and data soon.
Yes.
But just looking at the trends of, aid and partnerships and collaborations that in many ways were supposed to serve citizens of the country.
Right.
But again, anecdotally, you'll hear across the board, there's data also that supports it, how corruption has played such a role. And I think corruption, it doesn't just cripple integrity, it cripples your muscle. It cripples your flex, because people are like, hey, you just take everything, appetite, so after a while, people will say, you can't be taken seriously. So now the citizens are saying, as a result of the corruption, I don't have access to my needs, to my rights. So I'm pushing back and I'm asking for accountability.
Right.
But they're holding on to those tools that worked before. That's trying to silence and try. You're doing it now.
It's not the same.
It's not the same. You're not dealing with the same set of citizens on the continent. You're not, but they're not understanding that.
I found a story on what you were saying, the story about President Trump wanting to intervene, in Nigeria. This is from Al Jazeera. Nigeria rejects claims of Christian genocide as Trump mulls military action. And then there was also another headline that they welcome, the help. Nigeria has said it would welcome assistance from the US in fighting armed groups as long as its territorial integrity is respected. Okay. US President Trump continued to threaten military action in the West African country over what he claimed was persecution of Christians there. Officials and experts on Sunday in Nigeria denied the claims of mass killings of Christians, noting that Boko Haram and Al-Qaeda linked groups target people of all faiths in Africa's most populous country. And the statistics actually show exactly that, right? There's no particular targeting of any group. Trump, who has directed his government to prepare for possible fast military action in Africa's most populous country, doubled down on the threat on Sunday, saying he was considering a range of military options in Nigeria. Higher. He said he envisages a lot of things. Now, the fact that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs said they welcome assistance as long as it doesn't interfere with our territorial what other kind of assistance do we think is on the table here?
Yeah, we're moving to another shocking story as we wind up on this one. Yes, you said it is very on brand for Trump. And a lot of people, you find that even Americans who are pro-Trump who are standing with him on this, it's the thing for it's protecting faith, it's protecting Christianity. That's the guys. And it's that coming together. It's saying we will not allow this persecution to happen. His protectionism moves beyond his borders. It's more like, because we are conservatives and Christians, we will stand with Christians. And if they're being persecuted, we're going to intervene. Even though, again, like you said, in Nigeria, they're saying, hey, it's a lot more nuanced than that.
Right.
But okay. There's another very shocking story here, Mariam. Police in Kiambu County are probing the murder. It's heartbreaking, first of all, of an 11-year-old girl allegedly by her mother. Right? The Thursday morning incident shocked residents of Gakinduri village in Kabete, who claimed the suspect was involved in some suspicious religious activities. We're going to listen to a neighbor to kind of relay what she thinks happened or what she thinks is happening. And then that's Peter Kimotho, and then Joseph Gitao as well, Mary's husband, just to try and understand this very... it's tragic that an 11-year-old has lost her life. Let's try and understand what happened.
Kwa akiambiwa ati akifanya hiyo kitendo atakuwa queen wa hiyo kanisa.
Na nilipoona kama ni kichwa nikawatafutia daktari. na akaenda akana psychologist na wakaongea, wakawa na session kubwa sana, na ikawa hata wiki hii watarudi kwake tena. Sasa bahati mbaya hiyo kitendo ikawa imetendeka, hakurudi kwa huyo kwa psychologist.
Kitu ya kwanza kile nataka achunguzwe niyo imani ya hiyo kanisa alienda tangu 2019. Kwa maana ilifika mahali sasa akawa sasa mabadilika, sio yule bibi yangu. Hata kuna siku nilimwambia sasa, wewe sio yule bibi yangu nilioa.
Uchunguzi imeanza, tuanzie wenye wanafanya uchunguzi nafasi yao wafanye kazi yao, kwa sababu nasema tufikishe tumejua nini hasa kilimfanya mama akaweza kutoa uhai mtoto wake ambaye mwenyewe amezaa.
First of all, I'm just very sorry for that poor baby girl who is just a victim of something that she probably didn't understand herself, and now she's no longer here. But yeah, I mean, we don't want to point to things too quickly before they're investigated, but it does give the likings of a cult or cult-like things that have to be done. And there is that link again when societies become fragmented, when there's issues around just access to resources, people turn to the strangest, darkest roots. And one of them oftentimes is cults and cultic, I don't know what to call them, executions and cultic things to do. And you'll oftentimes see it linked to, yes, there's a lack of knowledge, there's ignorance. Sometimes there's also some elements of poverty. And so you can't ignore the link, the rising numbers, what's happening in the coast. We'll get more details on what's happened in Kiambu. People just have to be vigilant, please. I think the neighbors talked about her, them saying that she needs to get psychosocial support. She did go for counseling. Looks like she didn't continue with her sessions. Then it happened. But that vigilance is important. What do you do beyond that? I think we need to figure out if you're nervous that somebody next to you is in danger, if you're nervous that they're taking part in activities that can cause harm to themselves and to others, I think that we need to have that conversation a lot more openly.
Agreed. It's so crazy. I was discussing this with a friend of mine yesterday, and she was talking about the link between, and not even this story we hadn't seen, honestly, between psychosis and religious extremism. And that often when people are having a psychotic episode, that they do get very either religious, spiritual, things like that, you know. So a lot of what they talk about, think about, just obsess about will be very spiritual, very religious things. So when that is coupled now with a cult or cult-like things close to them, and those two things meet, that's often how you end up with. Now, this is just me threading from the conversation yesterday. That's how you end up with things like this, because she was speaking about the relationship between psychosis and religious extremism or extreme spirituality. When someone, and those are like usually signs when someone is obsessive over religion, and it's all they talk about, breathe about, tweet about, think about, all of that. That's usually not a good sign. When it's also spiritual, whether they're, like, oh, I'm into spirituality, divinity, that's the other word, It's just like, when the things align, whether it's astrology, and they're just like, Mercury is, and that's all they talk about. It's usually not a good sign. So to your point, I think it's definitely something that we need to let each other know, that these are some of the things to look out for. All of us are vulnerable, by the way, to mental illness, one, but also even to cultism and to falling prey to cults. A lot of people assume could never be me. Don't say that. It just takes the right time and the wrong people, in your life, and that unfortunately could be really any of us. So it's for us to form community and to start looking out for the signs where, like, are you okay? The people you're hanging out with, you said there, that church you've been going to 4 days a week. What are you doing 4 days a week? You've spoken really well about it, and people like to get defensive, but you're right. If it is obsessive,
Because people will say faith, and faith is personal. Spiritual journeys are personal. Where somebody is in their spiritual life in faith is personal. But yes, there are extremes. And even people who are in faith and sort of like mentors in faith, who are considered measured and encouraging, will also sound the alarm on this. They say, no, you don't spend every single walking moment here unless we've planned for the next day there's a kesha. You know what I mean? Like if it's within a structure, and if you're not also, remember the steps, being isolated, beginning to judge and push back on everything, there's always a thin line, and people will then weaponize it and say, you're persecuting me for my faith.
Right.
But then if it's starting to get into dangerous territory, then yeah, I think people should call it out. And we're scared. We don't, what was the quote I said yesterday? We don't like to confront. We don't. Kenyans have oftentimes, I think it's taken another generation, a younger generation, to call things out. But as a result of not, if you did then, you were persecuted big time.
Yeah.
And now it's like, it's okay to check yourself. Don't be afraid if you're being held accountable. So people I know will push back and say, but it's faith. The people who are being held at the coast, their followers will still say, we're being persecuted. There's a different type of persecution, which, if you're a person of faith, it's in the book, it makes sense.
Yeah.
But where you're starving yourself, where people are dying, where you're killing, ritualistic killings, no, you're right. Community, check in, push back, and intervene. Sometimes somebody just needs to be saved and told, I'm taking you, and we're all just going to take turns watching you and making sure you're not harmful to yourself.
Thank you.
Harmful to others.
Because sometimes that's exactly what's needed. You can tell in this case how community was trying. They're like, let's get you a psychiatrist, let's get you, some counseling. But beyond that, like if she's an adult as well. So if she's refusing to go to these sessions, then it's what next? But you're right. Sometimes it just takes like a straight up intervention for people to say, you're not okay right now, and we need to figure this out.
Because we love you and care about you. We're taking a break. We'll come back and continue with a few conversations and see if we can welcome our guest to talk about artivism. It's coming up to 7:30. We'll be back in a moment.